The mighty stalwart warrior slammed his fist through the reinforced metal wall, as if it were made of paper. Around him, other species cowered in fear. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, with gray-blue skin that could resist plasma shots, he represented everything that made his people the undisputed rulers of known space. Another victory for the mighty. He roared, his deep voice echoing through the space station's main hall. No one dared to meet his gaze. The stalwarts had ruled the galaxy for over 500 years, and no one had ever come close to matching their strength. In the corner of the hall, a small trader with 6 arms quickly gathered his goods and scurried away. The sight made the warrior laugh. This was how it should be. The strong ruled, and the weak stepped aside. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out every day. The stalwarts commanded respect through their incredible physical might. Their smallest adult could lift a ground vehicle with one hand. Their skin could withstand temperatures that would melt steel. They had never lost a war, never backed down from a fight, and never shown weakness. But everything changed the day the human ship arrived. Captain Stone stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Tenacity, looking at the massive stalwart patrol ship through the main viewport. His ship was just a tiny explorer, about 1/8 the size of the alien vessel. Still, he maintained his calm as the alien ship's sensors scanned them. "Sir," his first officer reported, "they're hailing us." Stone straightened his uniform. "Put them through." The screen lit up with the image of a stalwart commander. The alien's massive head and armored skull ridges made him look like a living battle tank. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the humans. "Unknown vessel." The stalwart's voice boomed. "You have entered space controlled by the mighty stalwart empire. Identify yourselves." Stone stepped forward. "This is Captain James Stone of the Earth exploration vessel Tenacity. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact." The stalwart commander's laugh shook the video feed. "Earth? Never heard of it. You look soft, pink, and weak. How did creatures like you even make it to space?" Stone kept his cool. Years of diplomatic training had prepared him for first contact situations, even if he'd never expected to meet aliens who looked like they could bench press his ship. "We are representatives of humanity," Stone explained. "We've developed faster than light travel and wish to establish peaceful relations with other spacefaring species." The stalwart's expression shifted from amusement to curiosity. "Follow our ship to Station Delta 7. We will test if you are worthy of our attention." As the transmission ended, Stone's first officer turned to him. "Sir, their scans show they have weapons that could vaporize us with one shot. Should we run?" Stone shook his head. "No. We knew we'd eventually meet other species out here. Running from the first challenge we face isn't the human way." The Tenacity followed the massive stalwart ship to a space station that looked like it was built to house giants. Everything was oversized, reinforced, and built to withstand incredible force. As they docked, Stone couldn't help but wonder if the chairs in the meeting room would even fit human bodies. A delegation of 3 stalwarts met them at the airlock. Each one stood twice as tall as Stone, their muscles rippling under their ceremonial armor. The leader looked down at the humans with a mixture of curiosity and dismissal. "I am Battle Master Thunder Fist," the lead stalwart announced. "Welcome to Stalwart Space, tiny ones. Few species are brave enough to enter our territory willingly. Fewer still survive the experience." Stone and his team showed no fear. They had come too far to be intimidated, even by giants who could probably use their ship as a football. "We look forward to proving that strength comes in many forms," Stone replied diplomatically. Thunderfist's laugh echoed through the station. "We shall see, little human. We shall see." As Stone looked up at the towering aliens, he knew humanity's greatest test was about to begin. What the stalwarts didn't realize was that humans had spent their entire history overcoming seemingly impossible odds. Size wasn't everything, and soon these mighty warriors would learn it the hard way. 3 days after first contact, the stalwart High Council gathered to discuss the humans. Their massive chamber, built from metals mined from the core of dead stars, echoed with heated debate. Thunderfist stood before them, describing his meeting with Captain Stone and the human delegation. "These humans show no fear," he reported. "Despite their weak appearance, they carry themselves with unusual confidence." The head council member, Great Hammer, leaned forward on his throne. His ancient battle scars gleamed under the chamber's lights. "Then we shall test them as we test all species who enter our space. Send the challenge." Aboard the Tenacity, Captain Stone read the message twice before calling an emergency meeting. His senior staff gathered around the conference table, faces serious as they reviewed the stalwart challenge. "They want us to prove our worth through combat," Stone explained. "One human champion against their strongest warrior. If we refuse, they'll escort us out of their space and mark humanity as cowards." His science officer spoke up. "Captain, their average warrior can lift 20 tons. This is suicide." Stone nodded slowly. "That's why I've called in someone special." He pressed a button on his desk. "Send him in." The door opened, and Major Wells walked in. He wasn't particularly tall or muscular by human standards, but he moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced death many times and walked away. His weathered face showed the marks of countless battles on Earth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Stone announced, "meet Major Robert Wells, retired Marine combat instructor. He's agreed to represent humanity." Wells took a seat, his movements efficient and controlled. "I studied the stalwart combat footage you sent. They're strong, but they've never faced anyone like us." In the great arena of Station Delta 7, thousands of stalwarts gathered to watch the challenge. Their champion, Red Claw, stood in the center of the fighting ring. His massive frame rippled with muscles, and his battle armor gleamed under the lights. He had never lost a fight in 200 matches. The crowd fell silent as Major Wells entered. Next to Red Claw, he looked like a child facing a giant. The stalwarts in the audience began to laugh. "This is your champion," Red Claw boomed. "I could crush him with one finger." Wells said nothing. He simply stretched and took his position. The rules were simple: fight until one fighter couldn't continue. No weapons allowed, but any fighting style was permitted. Thunderfist, acting as referee, looked at both fighters. "Begin." Red Claw charged forward like a living tank, ready to end the fight in one blow. But Wells wasn't there when the massive fist struck. He had already moved, his smaller size allowing him to dodge with precision that surprised the crowd. "Stand still, tiny one," Red Claw growled, launching another attack. Again, Wells evaded, this time countering with a strike to the stalwart's knee joint. It probably felt like a tap to the massive alien, but the crowd noticed something strange. The human wasn't even breathing hard. From the VIP box, Great Hammer watched with growing interest. "The human moves differently than any fighter I've seen," he commented to Stone. "Why does he not attempt to match strength with strength?" Stone smiled slightly. "Because that's not the human way, sir. We've spent our entire history learning to overcome stronger opponents." Down in the ring, Red Claw was beginning to show signs of frustration. His attacks, while powerful enough to shatter steel, couldn't connect with his elusive opponent. More surprisingly, the tiny human kept moving, kept striking, kept pushing the pace. The fight that was supposed to end in seconds had already lasted 5 minutes, and while Red Claw's movements were starting to slow, Major Wells looked like he could keep going for hours. "Impossible," Thunderfist muttered, watching the display. "What manner of creatures are these humans?" The answer would soon shock them all, as the true nature of human endurance was about to be revealed. 10 minutes into the fight, the stalwart audience had stopped laughing. Their champion, Red Claw, was facing something he'd never encountered before, an opponent he couldn't hit or tire out. Major Wells circled the giant warrior, his movements still crisp and controlled. Sweat ran down his face, but his breathing remained steady. He had trained for situations like this his entire military career. though admittedly never against a 10-foot-tall alien. Red Claw swung again, his massive fist cracking the arena floor where Wells had stood a split second before. "Fight me properly, human," he roared in frustration. "Stop dancing." Wells spoke for the first time since the match began. "This is proper fighting. You're just used to enemies who fight like you do." In the VIP box, Captain Stone noticed Great Hammer leaning forward, studying the human's movements with increasing interest. The ancient stalwart warrior seemed to be realizing that something unprecedented was happening in his arena. 15 minutes, Thunderfist announced from his referee position. "The human still stands." Then Wells changed his strategy. Instead of purely evading, he began to strike back. His attacks targeted the same spots repeatedly: joints, pressure points, areas where even stalwart armor was thinner. None of the hits seemed powerful enough to damage the mighty alien, but they were adding up. Red Claw's movements were becoming slower. His breath came in heavy gasps. The stalwart champion had never fought for this long before. He'd never needed to. All his previous fights had ended in seconds. What are you?" Red Claw panted, trying to catch his breath. Wells kept moving, kept striking. "I'm a human. We evolved as persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're not the strongest species on our planet, but we're the ones who never stop." The words seemed to echo through the silent arena. The stalwarts watched in growing disbelief as their mighty champion began to stagger. His attacks became wild, desperate. Wells dodged them easily now. 20 minutes into the fight, Red Claw's legs buckled. The mighty warrior fell to one knee, his chest heaving. Wells stood before him, still in his fighting stance, ready to continue. "How?" Red Claw gasped. "I am stronger. I am tougher. My armor can stop plasma bolts." "Strength isn't everything," Wells replied calmly. "Humans learned that lesson long ago. We survived on our world by being smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than anything else." In a final, desperate move, Red Claw lunged forward. His massive hand actually caught Wells this time, lifting the human off the ground. The crowd roared. Surely now their champion would win. But Wells didn't panic. Instead, he twisted in the giant's grip and struck 3 precise points on Red Claw's wrist. The stalwart's hand opened involuntarily, and Wells landed gracefully as his opponent toppled forward, completely exhausted. Thunderfist stepped forward, his face showing shock. Red Claw cannot continue. The human wins. The arena fell silent. Nothing like this had ever happened before. A stalwart champion had been defeated not by superior strength, but by endurance and tactical thinking. Wells helped Red Claw to his feet, showing respect to his fallen opponent. The massive warrior looked down at the human with new understanding in his eyes. "You fought with honor," Red Claw said. "Different from our way, but with honor nonetheless." In the VIP box, Great Hammer stood up. His voice carried across the arena. "Today we have witnessed something new. The humans have proven themselves not through strength alone, but through other qualities we had not considered. Perhaps we have more to learn from them than we thought." Captain Stone smiled. This was just the beginning of what humanity could show the galaxy's strongest warriors. A week after the historic fight, the stalwart science team couldn't understand what they were seeing. They had been given permission to study human physical capabilities, and nothing made sense to them. "Look at this again," lead researcher Strong Mind said, pointing at the screen. "Their muscles are so much weaker than ours, their bones break more easily, and their skin can be cut by simple metal. Yet they achieved space travel before us." The research team watched recordings of humans building things on their ship. The stalwarts used their enormous strength for everything: pushing, pulling, lifting. But humans, they made machines to do the work. Thunderfist, now deeply interested in human capabilities, stood watching with them. "They are clever," he admitted, "like tiny problem solvers. Their discussion was interrupted by emergency alarms. A stalwart mining colony on the nearby moon was in trouble. Their main reactor was failing, and even their strongest warriors couldn't fix it. The radiation levels were too high for even their resistant bodies to handle. Captain Stone and his crew received the distress call. "We can help," he offered immediately. The stalwart commander laughed through the video screen. "This radiation would kill you instantly, tiny human. Your soft bodies would melt." Stone smiled. "We have something better than tough bodies. We have protective suits and robots. Let us show you." Within an hour, human engineering teams were on site. The stalwarts watched in amazement as the small humans directed remote-controlled robots to fix problems they couldn't solve with strength alone. "Fascinating," Strong Mind muttered, taking notes. "They don't try to overpower problems. They find ways around them." The human teams worked quickly. Where stalwart methods had failed, human ingenuity prevailed. They used tools, machines, and careful planning instead of brute force. The reactor was stabilized within hours. Later, in the colony's main hall, the stalwart governor addressed the human team. "You saved 3,000 lives today," he said, "not through strength, but through—" "What do you call it?" "Innovation," Captain Stone replied. "It's how we survived on Earth. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or toughest species. We had to learn to use our minds." Red Claw, who had come to watch the humans work, nodded thoughtfully. "Like in our fight," he said to Major Wells, "you won not through power, but through thinking differently." The humans spent the next few days teaching the stalwarts about their technology. The mighty warriors were surprisingly quick learners when they stopped trying to solve everything with strength. "See this tool," a human engineer explained to a group of fascinated stalwart workers. "It multiplies your force by 10. Even we can lift heavy things with it." Strong Mind's research team made more discoveries. Humans could survive in environments that would kill most species, not through toughness, but through preparation and protection. They could work longer, think in new ways, and adapt to almost any situation. But not all stalwarts were happy about these changes. In the shadows of the colony, a group of traditionalists watched with growing concern. "They're making us weak," one growled, "teaching us to rely on machines instead of strength. This isn't the stalwart way." Thunderfist overheard them but said nothing. He had seen enough to know that the humans weren't making them weak. They were making them stronger in new ways. But he worried that some of his people wouldn't understand until it was too late. As the human teams prepared to leave the colony, Captain Stone noticed both hope and worry in the faces of their new allies. The real test, he knew, wouldn't be proving human worth anymore. It would be helping the stalwarts accept that true strength came in many forms. The great hall of the stalwart High Council erupted in shouts and arguments. 2 months after the humans arrived, their influence had split the mighty warrior society into 2 groups. "The humans make us stronger." Thunderfist's voice boomed across the chamber. "Look at how much we've learned from them." Ironheart, leader of the traditionalists, slammed his massive fist on the council table. "They make us weak. Our warriors now talk of machines and tools instead of strength and honor." Great Hammer watched the argument from his throne, his ancient eyes studying both sides. The oldest living stalwart had seen many changes in his long life, but none like this. In the human observation room nearby, Captain Stone and Major Wells listened to the translated argument through their computers. They shared worried looks as the shouting grew louder. "This isn't going well," Wells said quietly. "The traditionalists are gaining support." Stone nodded. "And our scans show they're gathering warships at the edge of their space. They're planning something." In the council chamber, Strong Mind stepped forward with his research results. "The humans have helped us solve problems we've faced for centuries. Their ways don't replace our strength. They add to it." "Lies," Ironheart roared. "Yesterday, I saw young warriors using tools to lift cargo instead of their own arms. Our children will grow soft and weak." Thunderfist pointed at the screens showing the mining colony the humans had saved. Would you rather have 3,000 dead stalwarts who died strong, or 3,000 living stalwarts who learned new ways to win? The debate raged for hours. Outside the council chamber, many younger stalwarts gathered, talking excitedly about human ideas and innovations. But in darker corners, traditionalist warriors whispered about taking action before it was too late. Ironheart met with his followers in a secure bunker that night. "The council is blind," he growled. "We must act now, before human weakness spreads further. Prepare the attack fleet." But the humans weren't as helpless as Ironheart thought. Their sensors detected the fleet movement, and their computers predicted possible attack patterns. Stone immediately called Thunderfist. "Your traditionalists are mobilizing for war," Stone reported calmly. "We don't want to fight you, but we will defend ourselves." Thunderfist's face showed worry on the video screen. "This is not our way. Stalwarts face enemies openly, not with sneak attacks. I must warn the council." But before he could reach the council chamber, alarms blared throughout the station. Ironheart's fleet had launched its first strike, not at the humans, but at their own people who supported the humans. They attacked their own kind. Great Hammer's voice thundered through the emergency channels. "This is not the stalwart way." Captain Stone quickly organized his crew. "Send emergency signals to Earth. And get me Thunderfist. We need to coordinate our defense." In the chaos that followed, humans and progressive stalwarts worked together to evacuate threatened colonies. The humans' quick thinking and the stalwarts' strength proved to be a powerful combination. "See," Thunderfist said to Great Hammer as they watched humans and stalwarts working side by side. "This is what I spoke of. Together, we are stronger than alone." Great Hammer nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right. But first, we must survive what is to come." As Ironheart's fleet grew larger, both humans and stalwarts prepared for a battle that would decide not just their future, but the very meaning of strength itself. Ironheart's attack fleet appeared from hyperspace like a swarm of angry giants. 50 massive stalwart warships, each capable of destroying a small moon, moved toward the main stalwart colony world. "All ships report ready," Captain Stone announced from the bridge of the Tenacity. Around his small exploration vessel, 20 loyal stalwart ships formed a defensive line. They were outnumbered, but they had something Ironheart's fleet didn't: human tactical advice. "Remember the plan." Thunderfist's voice came through the command channel. "Fight smart, not just strong." The human engineers had worked through the night, upgrading the stalwart ships with new targeting systems and shield modifications. The loyal stalwarts had been skeptical at first, but they trusted their new allies. Ironheart's voice boomed across all channels. "Surrender now, weaklings. Your human toys cannot match pure stalwart power." Stone smiled slightly. "Show them what human toys can do," he ordered. The battle began with Ironheart's fleet charging forward in traditional stalwart style, direct and powerful, but the defending ships didn't meet them head-on. Instead, they split into small groups, using patterns the humans had taught them. "What is this cowardice?" Ironheart raged as his shots missed the nimble defenders. "Stand and fight." "Fighting smart isn't cowardice," Thunderfist replied. "The humans taught us that." The human upgraded shields on the loyal stalwart ships absorbed hits that should have destroyed them. The new targeting systems let them strike with precision instead of just raw power. Ironheart's warriors had never faced enemies who fought this way. On the Tenacity's bridge, Major Wells pointed at the tactical display. "Their formation is breaking. They don't know how to handle coordinated attacks." Stone nodded. "Signal Thunderfist. Time for Phase 2. The loyal stalwart ships suddenly changed formation. Instead of staying in small groups, they formed a giant arrow shape with a small human vessel at its tip. Ironheart's fleet fired everything they had, but the combined shields held. "Now," Stone and Thunderfist shouted together. The arrow formation split apart in perfect harmony, creating gaps that trapped Ironheart's ships between waves of defender vessels. It was like a giant space net, catching the traditional warriors in a trap they never expected. Impossible. Ironheart's voice shook with rage. How can you defeat superior numbers and strength? Because strength isn't everything, Thunderfist replied. The humans showed us a better way. Surrender, Ironheart. Don't force us to destroy our own kind. But Ironheart wouldn't give up. He ordered his flagship to charge directly at the Tenacity, hoping to crush the human ship and prove stalwart strength still ruled. What he didn't expect was Red Claw's ship moving to protect the human vessel. The former champion had learned from his defeat by Major Wells, and now he put those lessons to use. I fight with honor, Red Claw announced. And honor means protecting allies, not destroying them. The battle ended not with the destruction Ironheart wanted, but with precision attacks that disabled the traditional fleet's engines and weapons. The combined human and stalwart defenders took control without killing their opponents. In the aftermath, as Ironheart and his followers were arrested, Great Hammer made an announcement to all stalwart worlds. Today we learned what true strength means, he declared. It is not just in our muscles or our weapons, it is in our minds, our hearts, and our willingness to learn and grow. The humans have not weakened us, they have made us stronger than ever before. Captain Stone looked out at the field of ships, stalwart and human vessels flying side by side. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. Just imagine what we can accomplish together. 1 year after the great battle, the stalwart homeworld looked very different. Where once there were only buildings made to handle brute force, now there were clever machines and tools everywhere. Humans and stalwarts walked the streets together, the size difference no longer drawing surprised looks. In the Great Hall of Learning, formerly a warrior training ground, Strong Mind watched young stalwarts working with human teachers. The youngsters were learning to use computers, build robots, and solve problems in new ways. They still train in traditional combat, Thunderfist said, walking up behind him. But now they learn to think before they strike. Even Ironheart, under house arrest in a comfortable compound, had started to change. The former traditionalist leader spent his days reading human history books, trying to understand how such physically weak creatures had achieved so much. Captain Stone, now the official human ambassador to the Stalwart Empire, met with Great Hammer to discuss their latest joint project. The mighty stalwart leader had aged during the past year, but his eyes showed new wisdom. Your engineers have designed a ship combining our strength with your innovation, Great Hammer said, looking at the blueprints. It will be the first of its kind, truly a vessel of both our peoples. Stone nodded, studying the massive ship taking shape in the orbital shipyard above. The SS Unity, he said, built by stalwart strength, guided by human computers, and crewed by both species. In the military training grounds, Major Wells watched Red Claw teaching a new fighting style to mixed groups of humans and stalwarts. The giant warrior had combined traditional stalwart power moves with human tactical thinking. Balance, Red Claw explained to his students. Power must be guided by wisdom. Wisdom must be supported by strength. The changes weren't just on the stalwart worlds. Human ships now carried stalwart crew members, their mighty strength perfect for handling emergencies. Stalwart ambassadors visited Earth, amazed by how humans had built great cities despite their physical limitations. Strong Mind's research team made breakthrough after breakthrough, combining human creativity with stalwart durability. They developed new materials, better ships, and solutions to problems both species had struggled with alone. Look at this, he said excitedly to a human scientist, pointing at test results. Your light metals combined with our strength enhancement techniques, we can build ships twice as good as either of us could make alone. In the council chamber, now decorated with both human and stalwart symbols, Great Hammer made a historic announcement. The human alliance has made us stronger than ever before, he declared, not just in body, but in mind and spirit as well. Today we vote to make this alliance permanent. The agreement was signed with both human and stalwart writing. It promised eternal friendship between the species, combining the best of both worlds. Other alien races watched in amazement as the galaxy's strongest warriors and the innovative humans reshaped space itself. That evening, Stone and Thunderfist stood watching the sunset from the council tower. The sky was filled with ships of both designs, working together in perfect harmony. "Did you ever think it would turn out like this?" Thunderfist asked. "When you first entered our space." Stone shook his head, smiling. "We hoped to make friends. Instead, we found family." In orbit, the SS Unity prepared for its maiden voyage. Its crew, both human and stalwart, represented the best of both species. As it moved away from the shipyard, its massive engines glowing, it carried with it the promise of a future neither species could have achieved alone. The stalwarts were no longer just the toughest species in space. With their human allies, they had become something far greater, proof that true strength comes in many forms, and that the greatest power of all lies in working together.